And now we're going to take a look at seeing the our bioregion through the yes, no, yes, and what is already being created in our bioregion. And Cecil is going to come up and share with you what's happening and his response to the second Great Yes.
This may be, I kind of lost track. This very possibly is the fourth or fifth Biocommons class that I've attended. And it was...
Can you speak louder, please?
Sure. After, I think, the second pass that I made through the Biocommons class, I realized that the options for what I could do were somewhat limited. And so I began to look around to see what was possible. And about that time, I got an email from a friend that said, you should go look at a farm out in Sherwood, our table. So I went out to visit, and I visited with Nana Manjushi, and at the time she didn't realize that I was having a one-to-one relational meeting with her. But I wanted to learn some things about the farm and what it was. So let me try to put this in a little context for you. You know that we started basically looking at the big yes about creation, and now we're looking at our part of it, which is our creativity, our natural ability. Then we looked at the no, and the despair in the room was, you could just feel it. It was like this, everybody. And it was resistance. I remember the statements of resistance about, no, you can't say that. You can't have it that way. And now we want to look at the yes that can come out of that. We want to look at where the hope is and then where action can be. I want to preface this by saying this was a kind of a personal, one-person reaction, because as of yet, I didn't see the groups that I could join together with to make this more of a group process. But I'm seeing that coming out of the work of the Biocommons class. Well, I've just recently read this book, which I highly recommend to you, Agenda for a New Economy by David Korten. And the reason I recommend that to you is it really has some interesting things to say about what this yes could be. Because it's hard to imagine when you're stuck in a system that tells you what the story is, what the alternate story could be, and how that story might change things. So this I recommend to you. Well, my example I want to tell you about is the Our Table Cooperative, which is out in Sherwood. It's a 60-acre farm, and it was this passion that I had to do some kind of action that got me involved with them. Let me tell you why I picked them and why they're important to me now. That's not it. Forgot there were 2 pages. Well, first of all, I was concerned about the use of fossil fuel. And I went to the grocery store and I looked at the food that was there. I looked at some stats and actually learned in the process that in Clackamas County, where I live, that about 80% of the farms, and there are a lot of farms in Clackamas County, about 80% of the food that's produced there gets shipped out of the county someplace else, fossil fuel. And 80% of the food that we were eating in Clackamas County was coming in from someplace else, a lot more fossil fuel. I was looking at a way that I could have some impact on that personally. And so when I found the Our Table Farm, I realized that they're producing food and their goal is to use that food in the local bioregion. So that's clearly a lot less fossil fuel. And when I visited the farm, I noticed that almost every building that they have out there has solar panels on it. And I just realized the other day, in looking at something on their website, that they're using a bunch of instruments in the farm that are powered by batteries, by electric. So they're charging up, they're using the sun not only to grow plants and produce food, They're using it to get some of the energy that they need to help that process along. The second thing that's important to me was it's a worker cooperative. I look at the transition that we've had in our relationships over the centuries. Slavery used to be something that was just commonly accepted as one person could own another person. We made a dent in that. There's still some that goes on, but we pretty much eliminated it in many places. Then there was the second level of slavery, and that was the presumption that men could own women. And that was a form of slavery. And it took a long time to solve that problem. And now that presumption no longer exists, well, at least on most people's minds. There's still some men that we have to deal with in terms of violence and abuse that still think that's the way the world should operate. But we've pretty much eliminated that. Well, there's a third level that we're going to have to deal with next, and that is the slavery of the owner of a work or business. If you work for a business, they tell you what to do. They tell you when you do it. You don't have a choice in that, and the trade-off is they'll give you something in response for that as a token. And as we know in the recent society, that keeps getting reduced and reduced. It is a third form of wage slavery, and a worker cooperative addresses that issue. Because in a worker cooperative, the people who are working there have an ownership in the result. They're not working for the boss, they're working for themselves in making that possible. So I like that Our Table Farm was a worker cooperative. The next thing I found out about them was that the farm was located on a land trust. The land trust was basically dedicated for farming purposes in perpetuity. So it wasn't going to be rooted up and filled with houses or some big commercial building or something else. And therefore, as a land trust, they had a responsibility for the sustainability of the value of the soil that was on that land, because it was to be used in perpetuity. So the land trust was an important piece for me. They also are a producer cooperative. So not satisfied with just being insular in relationship to these first few, they reached out into the community and said to other farms, why don't you join us in this process of building a local food network within our bioregion? And they're actively working on that project, and it continues. The next thing was the fact that I was interested in how money works. If I go to Macy's, for example, and buy something, they take that money and put it in the bank that goes someplace else. There's no sense that that money is going to recirculate in my community. However, if it's a local business, they tend to go to local banks and the money recirculates in our own community. So the sustainability concept has to do with locality as well. We can't sustain the world by thinking of everything in terms of world dimensions. It has to be in the collections of smaller regions that work locally together. We've got a lot of work to do in this area. Finally, last of all, Our Table was a consumer cooperative. That means that the consumers could actually make a direct investment into the operation of the farming process in order to ensure that that farm is sustained over a long period of time. So the consumer has an investment not just as a customer, not just as somebody who there's a trade for, oh, give me some food, I'll give you some money arrangement. I want to invest in the success of your operation because I believe in these other things up here. So it's also a consumer cooperative. So I see this Our Table as being a model of a yes in response to big banks, how money is circulated in the community, how people are treated when they work, and specifically I'm interested in the reduction of fossil fuel. It's a process of cooperation not competition. Wall Street would have us believe that competition is what it's all about. That's the story, that's the narrative. They would have us believe that if you're not feeling good, you don't have enough. And what you need to do is have more, that is, consume. I don't think it's about having or even about doing, it's about being. It's our spiritual insight that we have to be concerned with. In order to deal with large stories like we've been sold over the past decades about what is important in society, the values, some of those you saw on the 2 sheets we'll talk about in a little bit. In order to deal with that, we have to have an alternative narrative, an alternative story. And I think our table represents those kinds of alternative stories that can make a difference. So I'm making an effort in other areas. I try to use cash at local businesses. The heck with credit card, I'll use it at major enterprises because that money's going someplace anyway, and they get charged the fees. But my local people, I want to pay them cash. So that's an example of little tiny things you could do. I think the important thing that I want to say is, as important as it was to me as an individual action, as a result of inspiration out of trying to find a yes, and then finding somebody that was doing it and supporting them, I know that the real solution is in the collective response of a lot of people working together, not in me finding an individual satisfaction. So let me see if you have any questions or thoughts, and I have a backup in case I can't answer. By the way, on the table I left, you probably saw some notes that are similar to what I was just saying about the farm. On the table over here is a poster that I did at my church. I was trying to convince more people to become members of the CSA that our table has, and right now I have 7 people that I actually pick up stuff and deliver food to them. And there are also some invitations over there. Could you tell us what this is coming up, Jonathan?
So on Saturday, November 8th, hello everybody. Hello. Thank you for having me tonight. So on Saturday, November 8th, we are about to kind of embark on the final milestone in our story to really kind of complete the farm-to-table mission that we're on. And that comes with the opening of our on-farm grocery and kitchen. So we're having a grand opening that day. So if you would like to come out and see the farm in Sherwood, see what we're all about, kind of share this milestone, share our story with us, we would love to have you. So the flyers that are on the table are just details of the grand opening.
I might add a real personal story to this. One of the reasons that I'm very interested in what they're doing now is that I convinced my son and daughter-in-law to be CSA members last year, and then they dropped out. I said, well, why did you drop out? And they said, oh, we just didn't have time to prepare the food. You know? So it's like, okay, now the farm is going to provide some prepared food. I'm going to get them back involved, I'm sure.
Thank you, Cecil. And also, as part of giving you an opportunity to know what's happening locally, I'm going to invite Dave just to stand up and to give you a little information about the Arbor Lodge Urban Farm that's located right here in North Portland.
Thanks, Levita. So Arbor Lodge Farm is located on Interstate in about Rosa Parks area. It's a lot smaller than our table. It's just a little half-acre farm. It just started this year and has been doing a CSA. But I think it's a great example of people just trying to build local community resilience by producing food for people. So if anyone is interested in coming for a tour of that farm, I want you to come and just sign your name on this clipboard here, and then I will email you and figure out some times when we can do that tour, okay? Thanks. And I think we're going to a break.
I got 3 things. First of all, I forgot to mention that of their work with they are now organic certified as a farm, which is another reason that I like them. They're also working on becoming biodynamic, which is a much more restrictive phase. There is one website that, if you are interested in CSAs and how you can support it, I would go to just look on the search for Portland CSAs, and you'll get a list of how many.
I think the organization that you're talking about is PACSAC,
Yeah.
Portland Area Coalition, Community Supported Agriculture.
But if you just look for Portland CSAs, you'll see some options.
There's many options.
20 or 30 in Portland. This is not a unique, I mean, our table is kind of unique in the way they're approaching it, but CSAs are not a unique thing in this area at all. And it definitely supports the local. Yes.
I don't know if this is a question you can answer. Maybe I should, or if I should just look it up. But I'm wondering, is there one that is centered right in the city? Like, it sounds like this one is starting out is great, but I'm thinking access, right? And not having a car to be able to go to Sherwood.
Well, if you look on the sheet, for example, I don't know where it is, which place it is. It shows a pickup locations.
Left-hand corner.
So even our table has pickup locations all around the Portland area. If you go to the various CSAs, as you look on this site with a lot of them, it's very likely you'll find a place that has a very close pickup location, even though the farm may be located out someplace.
Some of them even deliver to your house.
Yes.